Okay, this position that we see here is from a game between Alexander Kevitz playing white, and with black pieces is playing Jose Raúl Capablanca, the Cuban grandmaster, who was famous for his beautiful positional play and beautiful endings. Now, in this position, Capablanca with black pieces sacrificed already a pawn, and he has more activity with his pieces, and we can also see that the white king is a little bit well, how to say, he misses his pawns defending him. There is something also that's very important in this position, and that's to see these 2 pawns over here. You see, black has advanced his a pawn to a3, and the whole plan of Capablanca from this position is to try to capture the pawn on a2. Now that seems at first sight very difficult because it's defended by 2 pieces, the queen and the rook. But with the following moves, Capablanca makes it possible to win this position, even if it's now a pawn down. Let me show you how. The first move is very important. He plays the pawn from g6 to g5. Looks a little bit strange, because the first thing that we think when we see this is that, hey, white can push his pawn to f5, and actually that's exactly what Capablanca wants. He's actually inviting this pawn to advance to f5, and let's see what happens if he would do this. Okay, we'll do it like this. Alright, f5. Then would follow queen to e5 check, and now white has only 2 possibilities. He can play king to g1 and king to h1. Let's see both possibilities. If he plays the king to g1, then black can play rook rook c1 check, and after rook d1, and then queen to d4 check, and the white rook is pinned. So in this variation, black simply wins the rook. So that's what happens after king to g1. And let's see if he goes to h1, then again rook c1 check, rook d1, and now this time queen to a1, and after exchanging the rook takes c1, queen takes c1 check, king h2, bishop to c4 attacking the queen, and this white queen has not many options where to go. He can only go to f2, and then comes simple way of simplifying the position, queen f4 check, and after exchanging, of course, it's very clear that black will capture that pawn, and the black pawn will win the game. So actually this means that in this position, after queen e5 check, both possibilities of white, king to h1 or king to g1, they're both losing, and that's the reason why Alexander Kevitz did not play f5. Instead of that, he played his queen to f2. The idea might be logical that when you have more material, it's good to exchange pieces, but in this case it was a wrong decision. Capablanca exchanged the queens immediately. It's said that Capablanca, he once said that many times he sees a position and he doesn't need to calculate variations, he just knows what's right to do. And that's, well, of course, let's be honest, this is not possible always. Sometimes we have to calculate, but I think that Capablanca meant to say that he has a kind of insight for positional chess, and he like for example this choice, even if it's a pawn down, he just exchanges the queens, knowing that this pawn is very weak, and we will see that happening in the game. Well, after this he took on f4, and Alexander Kevich played this rook to f3. White is not interested in capturing this pawn. White is interested in capturing the a pawn, which is can be much more dangerous. Now Capablanca defended his pawn by playing rook to a8, and after rook f2, that's something that White needs to do because the pawn is attacked, so he needs to defend it with a rook. Here came a very beautiful move by Capablanca, and that is the move f3. He gives one more time a pawn, and taking this pawn, whether it's taken with bishop or with a rook, is not good, and I'll show you why. Well, taking with the rook is of course not right, because then the bishop takes on a2, and after rook f1, bishop c4, rook a1, a2, black simply wins, because the following moves are rook b8 and rook b1 winning. So taking with the rook on f3 is not correct. But what about taking with the bishop? Well, what happens if you take with the bishop is that the bishop is occupying a square that actually White wanted to put his rook there to attack this pawn. So the bishop is not well placed there, and this is what happens then. Rook b8, bishop d1, rook b2, king g3, exchanging rooks, and then again the pawn on a2 falls, and there is no way to hold it now, because the black pawn will simply advance to a2. So this is what happens after this beautiful move f3. Taking the pawn is not good for White. Well, what about not taking it? That's what Alexander Kevich did. He played this bishop to f1, and then followed rook b8. Rook takes f3 now, because now the pawn on a3 is undefended, so White thought I can take it attacking that pawn. But then came rook to b2 check, king g3, and then rook takes a2. And after rook c3, Capablanca played the rook to a1, and that was the moment for White to resign, because there is no way to hold the pawn. So let's say if you try something like bishop to c4, then after exchanging here, giving a check, king f2, a2, and there is no way to stop the pawn. The pawn simply promotes, and it's 1 for black. So this is the game that I wanted to show you, this ending with the beautiful move f3.